Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in today. We are at Seesaw headquarters in San Francisco, and we are talking about girls who code. So we have some awesome ladies who code here at Seesaw and do other jobs as well. We're really excited to spend time with you here today. I'm Angela. I should tell you about myself. I lead the community team here at Seesaw, and what does that mean? That means that I work with teachers all over the world that use Seesaw and make sure that they have ideas, they know of other teachers that they can connect with and learn from, and your teacher may also participate in some of the programs that I lead. So I was a kindergarten teacher for 15 years before coming to work at Seesaw. My students use Seesaw every single day in kindergarten and loved it. And I saw how great it was for my students and families and wanted to help other people get started too. So let's talk about what we are going to do today. We're going to learn a little bit about Grace Hopper. We're also going to meet other women who work at Seesaw. We are going to talk about experiences that we've had as women who code. And then at the very end, we are going to take time to answer your questions. So be thinking about what you might want to know about as we keep going today in our webinar. So the first thing I want you to know is that Computer Science Education Week, the week that we're celebrating today, is really held in recognition of Grace Hopper's birthday, which is so cool. And who is Grace Hopper? So Grace Hopper was a computer scientist, and her birthday is actually on December 9th, which is coming up. If she was still alive, she'd be 112 years old. And she was a U.S. Navy Rear Admiral and worked on some of the earliest computers ever made. She did some amazing, amazing work. And this story I love to tell. So when she was 7 years old, so maybe the same age as some of you out watching today, she was very curious. And she was so curious that she thought, how does this alarm clock work? So she took her alarm clock and she took it apart. And she wanted to figure out, well, how does this work? And then she took apart one, and then she thought, I'm still curious. So then she took apart another one, and another one, and another one. And I think the story goes that she took apart like 7 different alarm clocks. And her mom was a bit surprised, but could easily tell that Grace was very, very curious. So I think one of the things to keep in mind is if you are interested in coding or even working in a company with people that code, if you're curious and really like to solve problems, it might be a good step for you or a good career to look into. So we're going to meet some more of the Seesaw team here today. So I'm sitting next to Pam.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Pam, and I'm a software engineering manager. So what does that mean? So usually on my day-to-day, I come into work and my job is to help other engineers build Seesaw. And you can think about this kind of like a principal who's working with all of the teachers and supports all of the teachers in a school.
Yeah, so you work with a lot of people.
Yeah, I do work with a lot of people.
Can you tell us about what this is?
Yes, so right there you see me with a group of other people participating in a hackathon. So what is a hackathon? A hackathon is a fun event where people gather and form groups with a lot of other random strangers. And it's kind of like a computer science party. You get together and over a day or two, you work to build a creative idea.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
And then this picture, tell us what's happening here.
Yes. So this is a picture of a coding boot camp that I participated in a few years ago. So I was teaching high school girls how to code. And you can see here it's like the group of all of these students, and we took, over the course of like 2 weeks, all of these girls came in and learned how to code, not knowing much beforehand. So it was kind of like a fun 2-week summer camp.
So you definitely don't have to be a boy to code.
No.
Of course not. That's what
we're
here.
Not.
Oh, that's what we're here talking about today. So we have another friend that's here at Seesaw headquarters. Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Ilana. I'm a software engineer at Seesaw. I work on the Android app and also the back end. The Android app is some of the things that you can see, and the back end is some of the logic behind the operation that you can't see. And in my day-to-day, I do a lot of coding, sitting at a computer and coding, but I also, there's some code right there. Thank you, Angela. I also work with lots of different people in the company, like designers. I work with Pam, who's my manager, and people on sales, for example, to see what we should build. And then when we decide what we should build, we write code. And code is like any other language. So like we have English, we have Spanish, we have different languages in code. So I think this code right here is Python. So I use Python sometimes, and sometimes I use Java also.
So to me, this looks like all sorts of just numbers and letters and stuff that actually does something, Ilana?
Surprisingly, yes, Angela, it actually does a lot of things. I think just on the screen alone, we're doing like 4 or 5 different functions.
Wow, that's cool. All right, and then we get to meet Claire. Hi, Claire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Claire, and I'm Seesaw's implementation specialist, which is a fancy way of saying that I help your schools and districts get Seesaw set up for all the teachers and students in the school. Whenever a principal or administrator has a question, they email me, and I help solve their problem and make sure that Seesaw is up and running in your schools every day.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone listening has figured out that there's a lot of teamwork that happens here, right? So there's a lot of people that work together to make sure everything goes well. So we're going to talk a little bit about what subjects are most important in school if you want to be a good coder. And I'm going to let Pam start first.
Yeah. So one thing I want to iterate is that all of you are probably already taking classes that are going to help you be a good coder. Being a good coder requires a lot of problem solving and working together and working with a lot of different people.
Yeah. What would you say, Ilana? What subjects are important?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the biggest thing to piggyback off of Pam is the ability to problem solve and to critical think. And I think you can get that in a lot of different subjects. And there's tons of different types of computer science. So there's some that's more math heavy and science heavy, and some that's maybe more design based. And so maybe something like art would be useful. So I think in almost any subject, a lot of the skills that you learn, you can also apply to some sort of computer science.
Thanks for sharing. So then another question we're going to talk about is, what did you do in school that helped you with your job today? So I will start. So when I was in elementary school, I was in some different clubs and activities that really helped me follow some interests that I had. So I was a Girl Scout. So that was really exciting because we did all sorts of, projects and work together, and we helped the community. I also like doing a lot of art. So that kind of helps me in my job today, thinking about what people need and how to design things that they would find useful. What about you, Pam?
Yeah. So for me, I also was in art club, and I did a lot of different extracurriculars as well. I think leadership roles also helped me a lot, especially in my current job. So I helped lead a volunteer group in high school and middle school, and also had like leadership roles in like robotics club.
Cool. What about you, Claire?
Yeah, in school, I took a lot of art classes. I was actually an art teacher for a number of years after leaving school. And I think that being able to work with others and find creative solutions to problems has really helped with my job, because I have to figure out how to make things work in hundreds of different ways every day for each school that I work with. And I never took any computer science classes in school, but here we are. So even if you don't have a computer science background, you can still work in tech and work with amazing coders.
That's right. Ilana, what would you say about this? What helped you?
I think things that helped me the most actually were a lot of side projects. So in my free time, the cool thing about coding is if you can get access to a laptop or something like that, that's kind of all you need to build something. So I remember growing up and just having lots of different ideas. I built an app once to try to find people to play board games with me. I really like games. Found one person, my friend, who I forced to also download the app. But things like that. So like these side projects, just had an idea and tried to implement it, and you really learn as you go.
Lots of curiosity I'm hearing there too. So now we get to go to I think one of my favorite parts of doing the webinars is we get to hear from students like you that are listening and have questions that you want us to answer, because we've talked about a lot of things, but be thinking about what you want to ask. And I want to give a couple shout outs. We've got so many people here, like Mr. Atkinson's class and Mr. McKinney's class, Mr. Galen's class. We have Miss Kiefer, Miss Thornborough's class, all sorts of classes here. So we won't have time to answer everybody's question, but we'll try to get through as many as we can. So I'm going to play a little bit of music for maybe 30 seconds, and you are going to get to look at your teacher and talk to your teacher and think of maybe one question that you would like your teacher to type in. Make sure that your teacher lets us know where you're from and what grade level you are in so we can answer your questions, and we'll try to get through as many as we can here live today. So let's listen to a little bit of music. Here we go. There's so many questions coming in. Oh my goodness, this is exciting. So we're going to start with Miss Ashcraft's class, and they are fifth graders in Ohio, and they've got all sorts of questions, but I think the one that we are going to start with is, do you ever have trouble collaborating, meaning working together with other people? What do you think, Pam? Do you want to take that question?
Sure. Let's see. So one of the things that happens when you work a lot of people is that sometimes there's communication issues that might pop up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this is something that happens, always, no matter what. But like one of the things that we do to make sure that we collaborate and we communicate properly is that we have kind of daily check-ins. So we talk to each other every day to make sure that we agree on goals. And once you have that agreement on goals, it's a lot easier to make sure that you're moving and doing all of the right things.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We've got so many questions. I know that Miss Melcho's class is here, Miss Hewitt's class, Miss Emery's class. So thanks for joining us. We have a question from fourth graders in Miss Hart's class. What is the most interesting thing to do with code? Ilana, what would you say?
Oh man, so many options. I think something for me that's the most interesting is when we launch some code and it hits people across the world. So at Seesaw, we have, when we launch code, let's say our website, we have people in Australia using it. We have people over in Europe using it, South America. I think we're in over 90 countries. So I think one of the coolest and most interesting things to do with code is once you make something, it's very easy to share and spread with a lot of people.
That's great. We have Miss Olson's class. They are fourth graders in Iowa. So hello to everyone. Their question is, how long do you work every day? So I can start with that. I would say at least 8 hours a day, sometimes more. My hours are a little bit different sometimes because I want to really support teachers that are at school teaching when a lot of people are at their jobs. So I do some work at night and early in the morning too. What about you, Claire?
It depends on the time of year. Most of the time I work usually 9 or so hours a day. But during the back to school season, which is August, September, and October, I usually work closer to 15, 16 hours a day because so many schools need to use Seesaw, and we want to make sure that we can get it to all of you students as quickly as possible. So it kind of fluctuates there.
Yeah. We have a question from Miss Cross's class. Is coding easy? What would you say, Pam?
I would say it's fun.
Okay.
Easy is a relative word. Some things, once you start doing more and more, it becomes easier and easier. But the better you get at something, I think the more interesting challenges that you can take. And I think the main goal of coding is that as you get good at something, you find new challenges, and then it gets hard again. I think it's that easy to hard that makes it really fun.
And this will be a question for you, Ilana, from Miss Fryer's class in Oklahoma. Hi, everyone. What is something that you have coded that you are most proud of, Ilana?
Oh my gosh, that I'm most proud of. Okay, that's a tough one. But in college, I was a part of a group that coded a website, and what it did was we worked with recycling and garbage collectors in Baltimore. Shout out to Baltimore. And what the goal was to reduce people's waste. And so what we did is we would weigh people's trash, and we'd weigh the recycling, and then it would show up on this website, and they could compare themselves to their neighbors. And so we tried to gamify people recycling, and so we would give little prizes to the people who recycled the most and threw away the least.
Wow, that's great. I would be proud of that too. We have Miss Castro's class. They're in Chicago. They're 2nd and 3rd graders. Their question is, do you code every day? So I do not code every day. What about you, Pam?
Yeah. Not every day, but almost every day.
Claire, what about you?
Nope, not me.
Ilana, how about you?
I do code every day. Sometimes I even dream in code. I code so much. It's pretty fun.
So we have a question from Miss Wilner, who is actually in Argentina. How long does coding take?
Ooh.
You want to start, or Ilana? What do you think?
How long does coding take? I think coding is kind of like it's kind of like writing a book, I guess. There's multiple chapters, I would say. And so I think the easiest thing that I do is I kind of break up the whole book into chapters, and then maybe chapters into a page. And it's easier for me to think about it kind of in like these smaller goals and milestones. And so I would say we try to think about things like Pam and I work on a team, and we work on things on a weekly basis. So every week we have a check-in, and I think that's a good amount of time to get something solid done.
Awesome. So this is an interesting question. Miss Myers is asking, they're 3rd graders in Pennsylvania, if they like to code, are there any gifts that they could ask for? Pam, do you have any ideas?
Oh, wow. Let's see. Any gifts that you can ask for? I would say like access to a device that lets you write code. It's probably something that would be good, like access to a computer somewhere, so that you can start playing around. There's a lot of websites out there, that where you can start learning how to code and start building things. And like you really only need a computer and access to a computer, I would say, to start coding.
Thank you. So then we have Miss Melcho's class in Wisconsin. They're 3rd through 5th grade girls right now watching, and they have a coding curriculum at their school, but they want to know what struggles have you had in your job with coding? Ilana, do you want to start? What struggles have you had?
Sure. What struggles have I had? I think one thing is this is the first job that I've had outside of college. This is my first full-time job. And one struggle that I had is when I joined, I think a lot of people were more experienced with the Seesaw code than I was. And so at the beginning, I spent a lot of time learning before that I could contribute. And everyone was very supportive, but I think a struggle was realizing that I couldn't contribute right away. And I first had to take some time and learn about what Seesaw is all about before I could.
Great. We have another question from Miss Irving and Miss Berry's class in Florida. They want to know how many female engineers are there and how many male engineers are there at Seesaw. Do we know?
Yeah. So we have 7 female women engineers.
Okay.
And I think we have 9. Is that right, Ilana?
Yeah, 9.
9 engineers who identify as male.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. And Mr. McKinney's class, boy, we love seeing your class icons that you're showing us and sharing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they want to know, how did you discover that coding would be a good career? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I was in school, like I loved building things. I loved being creative and like playing with Legos. And I think I like math and science and art. So I feel like all of the elements that are really essential to coding were there and were interesting to me. When I was I didn't get to take any computer science classes until college.
Right.
So that when I got to college and I started taking computer science, I found it really, really fun, and I liked those classes a lot more than others. And I think that's what really made me realize that that was what I wanted to do for a career.
Cool. Well, I know we're out of time, but we could just go on forever. We have so many questions, but shout out to Miss Bellinger's class, Mr. O'Donnell's class, Miss Sampson's class, Miss Cross's class. I think we said hello. So many classes that are here, and I know we can't shout out to everyone, but we are so glad that you could join us. But one thing I want to let you know about is you can code and create too. And this is a creation activity inside Seesaw that your teacher could share with you to design the next Seesaw class icon. So all the directions are here, and we're actually going to pick 3 winners that share their designs with us, and our designer is going to build it into Seesaw. So we've already gotten lots of great designs coming in, but make sure you take a shot at that. We'd like to see what your ideas are. And we want to thank you for joining us today for Computer Science Education Week. And we're excited that you can, maybe try some coding and share what you're doing with us this week. But thanks everyone for coming. Bye.